The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
I'm Chris Stafford, and this is Art, the podcast where we get to know the women behind their art.
If you don't feel it, I'll make you feel it. I'll show you what I mean. If you don't feel it, I'll make you feel it. I'll bring you to your knees. If you follow me.
My guest this week is the English artist Amy Dury, who paints people by extracting figures from photographs from the pre-digital age found in family photographs or home movies. She's most often drawn to people's roles in society, the hierarchies and dynamics of power. Amy says, "Our history instructs, seduces and tethers us, and I look to use paint to examine these emotive memories, which reflect current themes and tensions in contemporary life." Amy was born in London, England in 1971. One of 4 children, she has 2 brothers and a sister. Her mother Susan was a teacher and creative in textile art. Her father John worked in the city. Amy studied for her BA in printmaking at Glasgow School of Art, graduating in 1997, before earning an MA in fine art at the University of Brighton. Prior to moving to Scotland, where she met her husband, Amy studied in Belfast during the Troubles, the Northern Ireland conflict, which was an uneasy time with the constant threat of bombing. When the couple moved to Brighton, Amy pursued her love of art by teaching before focusing on her painting. Amy now divides her time as head of art at a sixth form college in Brighton and painting in her home studio. She is married to Peter, an artist and architect, whose father was a Scottish landscape artist. The couple have 2 children and live in Brighton, England. Amy, hello and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you doing?
You are actually in a pretty part of England on the south coast there, Brighton and Hove. So paint us a picture of what that looks like for you as an artist in terms of the light and where your studio's based, where you get your available natural light.
Well, I don't have that kind of sort of Turner-esque vision of the sea and being influenced by the skies. It's not really what does it for me, actually. I mean, I love living by the sea, but I wouldn't actually say I'm naturally drawn to landscape or skies particularly. And my studio is a very dark back room in the house, north facing. So it's actually quite dark. It's only got one window. So I don't have the beautiful sun-filled studio that I might like to. But, luckily, because I mostly paint from photographs, it's not too much of an issue.
No, it's not like you're looking for the landscape and the seascape and stuff like that. But are you inspired by your environment, though? Because, when people live by the sea, they generally go for bracing walks to be exhilarated by their surroundings. Are you that person?
No, not really. Which is quite funny because, I love to go down the beach, but then whenever I go down there, it's like, oh, wow, I've not been here for ages. I kind of forget it's there. You get so caught up in life. It's quite actually easy to forget that you're living on the edge of the world, the edge of a country out to sea. I'm actually probably more drawn to the Downs, which is just behind me. So that's the South Downs, and that's a really beautiful environment. And I consider myself incredibly lucky to be able to get there quite quickly and to be able to walk around in that environment. Probably more than the sea, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting. And as you say, those downs are really, really beautiful. I used to go there and I know exactly what you're talking about there. It is bracing, it is beautiful, and it's a vast expanse too. So I'm wondering with the type of painting you do, if the environment's not influencing you and motivating you, what does motivate you when you get up in the morning then? Are you disciplined to go into the studio at certain times of the day?
I am quite disciplined. I've actually just, while you were talking there, I'd suddenly sort of realised that maybe I am slightly influenced by the landscape, because sometimes when you go up into the Downs and you get a good view across the countryside and everything looks as if it really could be the 1950s. You know, there's no, it's very Enid Blyton in that kind of way. And sometimes I really enjoy that. And a lot of times when I'm looking at imagery, I'm very drawn to that kind of English 1950s, 1960s kind of atmosphere. So actually, sometimes I do get up there and I do feel quite inspired by that, because it feels very timeless being up there. So that just occurred to me. So that was an interesting question you asked, actually. But yeah, I am quite disciplined. I mean, I still have a job, so I work 3 days a week as a teacher. And then on my days off, I try very hard to make them count and have painting days. And I generally get up pretty early, and my brain is definitely best early in the morning. So the earlier I can start, the better. And then it will tail off. If it's a really good day, I might keep going till about 5 o'clock. But you kind of have to see how it goes. Definitely the mornings are the best bit. But yeah, it is really difficult splitting my time between working and being an artist. I'm constantly trying to keep a balance on that and make sure I do both things okay. You know, it's not always easy.
What are you teaching, Amy?
I teach art. I'm head of art at a big sixth form college.
Is that where your children, you've two children, Ray and Iris, teenagers, are they at that college?
They're actually not. There's two big sixth form colleges in Brighton, and actually my daughter is at the rival one on the other side of town, which we kind of just decided was the best idea. Yeah, but that's quite interesting. It's fine. They're both good places. Where I work it's really fun. I really love my job, and actually it really is why I started painting. Having that job was the reason I started painting, because I needed to learn how to teach painting, and I didn't really know how to.
Well, that's interesting. It came that way around.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst then for that?
Well, I was teaching. So, I mean, I never really did much painting. My degree was in printmaking, and then I was doing bits of textiles. And then when I got into teaching, the last job I had for about six years was a photography teacher. So I was teaching photography. And then I had a bit of a part-time job teaching graphics in this college where I'm working now. I was working there 1 day a week teaching graphics because they knew I could do printmaking, so I could cross-reference stuff about that. And then whilst I was working there, I realised that the head of art was going to leave soon. And I thought, I would love that job. That's the job I'd like. But I'm going to have to teach painting, and I don't know how to teach painting because I really hardly ever painted. So this was 6 years ago. And so I went on a couple of little courses to sort of get myself back into it, and then got the job and started painting.
And so now you have this combined career. Which do you prefer?
It's a very common question, actually. I really do like both. I do appreciate both. You know, I think I would really enjoy being a full-time artist. I think I'd really, really enjoy being able to dedicate all my time to it. And I think hopefully that will happen one day. At the moment, so I'm down to 3 days a week, which is good. And I get a lot out of my job. I love working with the teenagers. I love the big, busy environment of the college. I like the people I work with. I like the fact that I get to think about art and talk about art and come up with ideas and bounce ideas around with the students all the time. So if I was an artist all the time working in my studio, I suppose I'd miss that. You know, you wouldn't get that so much when you're on your own, you know, that sort of, there's a sense of purpose in a lot of ways. You know, you go in there and I've got a job to do, and I know what to do, and I've got this beautiful room that I can work in, and I've got things to organise, and I know kind of how it works. There's a real joy in that, actually. So yeah, I'm not 100% ready to give it up yet.
And it's that outside stimulation too, isn't it? And the inspiration of new ideas, I suppose, especially talking to another generation who view the world differently.
Yeah, definitely. I'm constantly interested, and I'm so grateful to be able to get a bit of an insight into what their lives are like and the sort of things they're dealing with. And obviously teaching art is so interesting because they have to come up with projects that are personal to them. And they got to reflect back their experience through their art. So I get to see a lot of their lives and the sorts of things that they're thinking. So it's a real privilege.
Because your preferred subject is people.
Yeah.
Where did that choice come from?
I think it's just always something I've been drawn to. I've always loved, I suppose, portraiture, first of all. And then when I look at art, I'm mostly loving, well, I like lots of different types of art, but I really enjoy figurative art. So when I started painting, it really was a question of, okay, so I need to paint some figures. Who am I going to paint? How do you do this? Where do people go to find their figures? So the first thing I did, I don't know where this idea came from, but I thought I'd use some old photos from the family album because, okay, there's figures in there. That's great. I can use those figures. And that's the first paintings I did, were these sort of 3 long paintings from my own family album, and I've still got those paintings. I'm still really, really pleased with them because I think they were a real revelation when I did them. It's like, oh, right, you can really have some fun with this idea. And yeah, so then it just became a thing of like, I didn't really feel like I wanted to look at.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for 2 is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
Contemporary imagery, or even take my own photographs, although I think I might want to do that one day. But, using these old photographs just had such a sort of evocative feeling that I could play with, that after I'd dredged through all my family photographs, which weren't very many, so I didn't get very far. Then I started looking around at other imagery from the past to use.
So was this kind of a soulful connection then? I suppose emotional too, if it was people that you knew that inspired those early paintings.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm looking at one now actually, and it's of my brother who's older than me, but in the painting he's a small boy. And he's standing next to a big dark figure, and I haven't really painted the dark figure. It's just kind of a looming dark presence, and it's in no way really a story about an actual incident. It was just he's got the very sort of slightly nervous, vulnerable expression on his face, and so that just kind of seemed to fit having these 2 figures in this kind of relationship like this. And yeah, I just thought it was really sort of powerful to suddenly be able to start making these interpretations about relationships between people and the lives of maybe a single figure themselves by using colour and using brushstroke and using kind of elements of abstraction or unfinished elements of the painting to bring out a narrative. And yeah, I'm still very attached to those paintings, which is why I've never sold them. Of these ones of my family. Yeah, you're right.
What has been the family's reaction then to having their portraits painted from, previous time in their lives?
Well, I think they're all right. I mean, because I don't think with any of my paintings they're massively portraity. You know, there's a difference between the portrait and the figurative painting that I do. I like to paint portraits, and I'm probably more interested in likeness in those ones, and it's a different kind of thing. These kind of figurative pieces, narrative figurative, that's how I probably describe them, are not really meant to be the person, you know. So I'm almost like I'm stealing their gestures, and I'm stealing their body language, and I'm stealing that little moment of time to do something else with it, if you know what I mean.
Makes it unique, of course, because you're adding your own style to it without it being a straight image of their portrait.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's when you're working from photographs, I think it is important to somehow translate through that photograph some sort of feeling or new narrative that you want to convey through it. It's not about copying the photograph. I don't need to recreate the photograph. The photograph exists as itself, doing its very good job already. So it really is about saying something else, by the things that you put in, the things that you leave out, and the way that you apply the paint.
At what stage in your life did you actually start painting then, Amy?
Well, I mean, I have put paint on canvas before, but I'd say this since it got serious, and I started, and I got this job, and I did a couple of painting courses. That was 6 years ago. So that's when I was about 47, 48.
So relatively recently, but you know how I like to go back into the formative years of an artist's life. So let's rewind the clock a bit here, Amy, and go back to your earliest days. You were born in London. Where exactly?
Sydenham, southeast London.
Okay. What was life like as a child then, growing up in London and school? Talk us a little bit about through that. Paint us a picture.
It was good. I have fond memories of my childhood. I have fond memories of growing up in London. I mean, London is such a big place. I still couldn't tell you anything about areas anywhere over the river, North London, no idea. Even Southwest London, no idea. Really, you just know your little tiny patch of Southeast London. So Crystal Palace, Forest Hill, Sydenham, that's about it. That was my patch. And I suppose things got a bit more interesting when I got to be about 16, 17, and we were able to roam a bit further, and then you'd go into the West End, and we'd go out in places like Deptford and New Cross. And, this was the music was obviously great in London. And so you'd go to great music nights and discos and, pubs. And yeah, it was fantastic. I had such a great time there. But I suppose what I eventually felt was that it was very frustrating growing up in London. I felt quite hemmed in, and it's difficult to move about. Your friends will live a distance away from you. You have to get various types of transport to get anywhere all the time. Everything's very complicated because everything's so far away, and it's so big. So I actually made the decision when I was 18 to move to Belfast in Northern Ireland, which is where I went to university for a little while.
And those early days, though, you had two brothers and one sister. So where do you fit in the list of siblings?
Well, I've got an older brother who's 2 years older than me. My mum and dad were very young when they had us. I think my mum was 19 when she had my brother. And then my little brother and sister are 15 years younger than me because they are with my stepdad as a second marriage. So that was really interesting. So when I was 15, I suddenly had a baby brother and then a baby sister. So I was immediately, I think, grown up then, and kind of left to my own devices somewhat. And but it was lovely having this younger brother and sister to play with and to look after. So
when you were the youngster, were you an indoor or an outdoor child?
Very outdoors, yes. We lived in a really safe road, and actually London is very green. There's great parks. We're right next to big Crystal Palace Park, and we were always out playing all the time. Playing. I suppose I'd be called a tomboy. I had short hair, and I would just be out on my bike and playing with the other kids all the time.
And what were your preferred subjects then in school?
At school, well, art was, and English. I was always quite drawn to English. I used to read voraciously and, write hundreds of letters. I had pen friends. When I was a teenager, about the age of 15, I had, I think, 100 pen friends roughly at the same time at one point. So I would go home every night and just write letters to all my pen friends all the time. And then, you'd get loads of letters the next day, and then you'd write loads more back again. And you'd advertise in these places like the NME and different kind of magazines and find people that had similar interests to you. And yeah, I made a couple of really good friends through that. And, it sees you through those pre-internet days and evenings where there's nothing on the telly and nothing to do.
I love that.
And I used to write to all sorts of famous people as well. I'd write to anyone that I thought was wonderful, and I'd make contact with them.
I love that, because it seems that's an art that's dying, the pen pals, with the internet age, that we don't do that anymore. And it's not that long ago that you did it.
I know. And I absolutely loved it. And yeah, it's very, very rare that I'll get a handwritten letter in the post anymore. Yeah, I really miss it.
And when you were not in school, what kind of things did you get up to? Were you sporty?
A bit. I was in some teams at school. I was never really in the A team. I think I remember I was made to be the goalkeeper in the hockey team because nobody else wanted to be it. But and I was fairly good at swimming and a couple of other things, but not majorly sporty, to be honest. I suppose by the time I was about 13 and 14, it was all music and hanging out with my friends. That really was what my life was about.
So were there any teachers that really shaped your direction in terms of career or influenced you? Any because often teachers do, don't they?
Yeah, well, I suppose my English teacher actually bought a drawing from me once, which was a big boost. Yeah, I'd done some drawing. I don't know how he'd seen it, but he bought it off me, and that was amazing. That was lovely. It's like, oh, okay, people want my drawings. This is great. My actual art education was nothing very memorable. I don't really remember doing anything particularly exciting in it. I feel like all my best work was done at home in my bedroom, copying album covers and pictures from magazines. That's where I was really excited by what I was doing. And yeah, so English, RE, so religious education. I used to love that. Actually, that was one of my favourite subjects, and I think that was because it was about issues, and it was about you could have arguments about various things of the day that people were concerned about, and sort of philosophical ideas. So I used to love RE and English and art the most. Yeah, but art was almost so negligible that when I did my A-level art, it's I don't even really remember much about it. I think I probably didn't work very hard because I got a B, and I didn't get into art college at that point. People had said to me, oh yeah, you'll get into foundation, and I was going to go to Camberwell in London, and didn't even get an interview. And this was a big shock because this was what my plan was, that was what I was going to do, go to foundation and be an artist. And so when I didn't even get into foundation, I changed my mind and applied to do English in Belfast and went to do an English degree instead. So it's funny how these things work. And it's also funny how I'm now an A-level teacher. I'm trying to get people to do their A-levels and fill their sketchbooks because I didn't do that very well. And I probably should have done.
So you weren't necessarily a good scholar, but you had the interest and motivation to do it at home.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think when the A-levels happen, which I'm seeing all the time, obviously, because I'm teaching this age group, I'm very attached to this age group, 16, 17, 18, because it's just such an amazing time of life when all these things start opening up for you. Yeah, I think there was so much going on. I was having a good time, and I was, I had a lot of friends and had a social life, and all my studies went on the back burner a bit. So that's why, I didn't do my art A-level as well as I should have done, which had its own impacts. But, there's no room for regrets in this life. I don't regret that at all. It was all good, whatever happened. And it's funny because that's exactly kind of what happened as well when I went to go and do my degree. So I stayed with my English degree for about a term before I realised I'd was really bored sitting in the lecture, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go to art school, so I reapplied to go to art school in Belfast, and did my foundation in Belfast. And then I wanted to go to Glasgow School of Art. And when it came to filling in the form, I thought, well, I can't apply for painting. I don't know how to paint. I'd love to do painting, but they'll never let me in painting. But, I do drawing, so I'll tick printmaking. And so I ticked the printmaking box and I got into printmaking. And there you go. There's another avenue of life opens up and took me away from painting again. But still was very informative and had a great time there as well.
Now, going back to the music you mentioned, what were you listening to then in your teenage years?
Well, I suppose what I'm talking about would be the late 80s, so sort of when I was a teenager. Loads of all the alternative late 80s music, love 80s music, with the Smiths, REM, all these kind of groups. But my big love was Kate Bush, who I probably discovered when I was about 15 and became utterly obsessed with. And I think I listened to the Hounds of Love album exclusively for about a year. That was all. And I ended up making a fanzine. I would go to to this women's centre down the road, and they'd let me use their photocopier, and I'd make all these fanzines all about Kate Bush and interviews with people, other musicians, and can't really remember what was in them. And my own artwork, I did lots of drawings inspired by Kate Bush. And then I'd I think I advertised them in like the NME and would send them out to people in the post. I did about 2 issues of that.
Did you ever write to her? Was she on your pen pal list?
I think I must have done. I don't remember, but I think she's quite famous for never replying. So I don't think I ever got anything back.
So would you say then your parents, your mother was something of an artist, wasn't she, into textiles? So was she encouraging you of your artwork, or did she just leave your mind alone?
Yeah, definitely encouraged. Yeah, her and her side of the family are very arty, I think, in that way. I'm not sure if she really got the chance to explore painting and drawing as much as she might have done, but she is excellent at textiles and quilting and clothes making, and she's always done that. And very very in general life. So yeah, definitely was encouraged. There was never any feeling that I couldn't or shouldn't do art as a future career or future direction.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for 2 is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
What kind of relationship did you have with your mother, Susan?
Good. She is someone that very much will let me be my own person, which is wonderful, and always been there and very supportive. And like I say, because she met my stepdad, and then I had a new family, and that all was happening when I was 13, 14, 15. I suppose there was that sense of that I was slightly cut loose a little bit in terms of like I was a little bit more free because their attention was elsewhere. Let's just say that. There was never any sort of neglect. It was just feeling like I had a bit more freedom. And that was okay. That was fine. I always had a very safe and supportive home, and my stepdad's a wonderful guy as well. It's always been very supportive.
And were you the sister that hung out with your siblings, or did you do your own thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were very small, so I looked after them, my younger brother and sister, all the time. Until I left home. So they were still quite young, even when I left home. So I was very big sister. They were babies, but that was lovely.
And so Belfast and Glasgow, then, two very different environments. So what was college life like for you at both of those places?
I mean, I went to Belfast. I was interested in Irish culture, and I was listening to a lot of Van Morrison as well, and that attracted me to it. And I had a friend who was there, who was enjoying it, so I thought I'll go over there and see what's going on. And it was just a revelation, to be out of London. I had to actually get a boat to get there, to this place where I could still get a university grant, but I had to get a boat to get there. And the culture was just so different, and life was so different. Being able to, it's a much, much smaller city, obviously, and you can walk everywhere. And there's these amazing, Irish music bars, and the people are so interesting and they're so funny. And there was also the Troubles were still on at the time. So there was this incredibly, I suppose, electric atmosphere all the time, because there was so much danger present all the time, and there were soldiers everywhere. All that stuff was just absolutely fascinating. And I just met some wonderful people. And yeah, I had a really great time for 2 years. And the move to Glasgow really was just because Glasgow was this place the art school was so famous for being the best art school for the type of art that I liked, like figurative art. So there's people like Peter Howson and Ken Curry, who I loved. And then just before me was Jenny Saville. So there was this big tradition of figurative art. So that's where I really wanted to go. That was my thing. And so obviously when I got accepted, it was like, okay, so now I'll move. And then that was a move in a bit of a different way, because when I'd gone to Belfast, I'd had a friend and I'd met friends very quickly. And then when I moved to Glasgow, I moved on my own, and I had to completely start from scratch, and I knew nobody. And that was difficult. I'm not going to lie. That was a tricky first term or so, when you don't know anybody and you're in a very cold place as a student and you don't have any money. That was not easy, but I grew to, absolutely love Scotland, and now Scotland is, I suppose, is my home from home. I hope, I do go up there a lot because my husband's Scottish now, and I ended up, meeting great friends and really enjoying living up there. Although I did decide to leave. To experience life back down here again, with the thought about maybe going back one day, but that hasn't happened yet.
So where did you meet Peter, your husband?
Well, I actually didn't meet him while I was a student. I met him quite a few years after I'd left Glasgow, at a return visit, going to a wedding of some mutual friends. And we realised that we probably were in the same room plenty of times, and I knew his brother really well. We were friends. I was friends with his brother, but we just hadn't quite met somehow. So it was like quite a few years after I'd left art school that I met him at a wedding. And so that was 20 years ago now. Yeah,
you've been together 20 years. Love at first sight?
Kind of, I think so. Yeah, it was very much like, you. I'd say that was the feeling.
The chosen one.
Yeah, it's funny. It was a very, very particular feeling, I must say.
I just wanted to go back to Belfast for a minute, because you were there during the Troubles, which I would imagine for a student might have been a bit of a scary time. Was that anything that rubbed off on you, or were you, superfluous to it within the confines of an institution, obviously being at college?
Well, I didn't feel very much part of an institution. I felt very much part of the community and part of my friends' lives and living in the real town and in streets. So I was very much a part of it, I felt like. And it was a constant topic of conversation. And you would hear bombs going off, and you would hear of different things happening. And you'd come in contact with soldiers. They'd stop you in the street, or your car would get stopped or something, So it was definitely there. And you'd hear all the stories from my friends, my Northern Irish friends, they would obviously have all their stories to tell you about things that had happened to them and their families. And then you'd go to the pub, and then there'd be a whole thing of like, don't sit near the door, and you can't go to that pub, and you have to sit on this side, or you can't walk down that side of the street. And there's a whole world and a whole language that you had to kind of try and get your head around, which, I'm never going to say that I'm going to fully understand. But it was really fascinating. It was fascinating to see that, how complex life actually was over there, with these two warring sides.
So you had a full experience then, if you were on the streets literally and understood maybe the separation of those religiously and politically. Were you afraid at any time?
I mean, yeah, there was always that kind of danger in there, especially, I suppose, because you go out into the pubs, and the pubs could have been a bit dangerous. But I've got to say, I probably never saw anything that was too frightening. And, I suppose I was lucky in that, because there was plenty of things going on. And obviously, I've got lots of Northern Irish friends who've seen and experienced other things. And I think my parents were horrified that I'd moved to Belfast. But no, I just felt like it was an absolute incredible place, Northern Ireland.
And then when you got out into the real world, what did that look like after college?
So, yeah, I moved down to Brighton thinking, okay, I'll just stay there for 6 months while I sort of work out what to do. Because you in art school, you really do not learn what to do with yourself or what happens next or what might be a possible future for you. It really is just like, okay, off you go. And so I came down to Brighton and sort of thought, okay, I'll see how it goes. And I'm sure I'll move on quite quickly and, find my whatever it is that I'm meant to be doing.
Why Brighton, though?
Because I had a couple of friends living here, and it's always been a place that, living in South London, Brighton was just that place that you went to. You go there for weekends. It was always just somewhere that I knew quite well. And because I knew a couple of friends that had moved there, I think it was just more or less that. It was just, let's just go somewhere nice to hang out for a bit and see what happens.
Where was your mother at this time? Your parents, where were they living?
Still in London. They've been in the same place forever. They're still there. So, and all my siblings live like within about 2 miles of each other in the same bit of southeast London.
To Brighton it was, and did you have a vision of what the future might look like then, or were you still single-minded about your career?
I didn't have a vision, no. I don't think I knew what I wanted to do. I got a studio in Brighton, and I thought, okay, so I'll make some art. And I was actually painting then, to be honest. I was painting and drawing, and I was doing these big weird things in gloss paint, like household gloss paint, which was kind of a little bit like, because I was making screen prints in Glasgow, like big, flat, bright coloured screen prints. And I think that was kind of mimicking these kind of big, flat, bright colours. A little bit like Gary Hume's work, I think I was really into at the time, which is these big gloss paintings. I was doing that a bit, and I think I did a couple of things. I think I exhibited some of my prints in an open house and sort of tried to work out how I was meant to be an artist. That might have lasted for about a year until I think I completely ran out of money and thought, okay, I really do need to get a job. I mean, I probably had part-time jobs in pubs and stuff like that straight away. But then I think it really got serious when you get into your 20s and you go, okay, no, I really need money. And I ended up getting, these terrible jobs like working in a call centre, just getting by, really. And it took me a few years to realise that I probably should. Well, actually, I did my MA in Brighton as well. So that gave me 2 years in the University of Brighton, continuing to do screen prints. It gave me access to the printmaking department in University of Brighton. So I had a nice time going in there, making all these other screen prints. And then I think it was directly after that I decided to do my PGCE, which is the teaching qualification, so that I could use whatever knowledge that I did have about art in something that was less awful than a call centre. So that's when I started teaching, and I've always taught sort of over 16, sort of an adult provision on and off ever since then.
And obviously you're very settled there. Did you get married down in Brighton, or did that come up before?
I've been living here about 5 or 6 years before I met Peter, and we married in Scotland. He's from the west coast, from Kintyre, got the Mull of Kintyre, basically that area. And we had a lovely wedding up there. And then he'd moved down here already, and we'd bought a house, and we'd already had a kid by then as well. So we got together and moved in and had children quite quickly. Then got married after that.
I'm thinking the wedding must have had bagpipes and the mull of a kintyre, did it?
It did, yes. It was great.
So clearly you decided that, teaching and the artwork were going to come together. But were you thinking that you had to be commercial with your art?
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So, while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
No, not really. I don't think I did think that. I think once I started teaching as well, I had an income, so I had a job. So it was less, I was never going to be an illustrator. I was never going to be a graphic designer. So it really was, to be honest, once I had children, my life was absolutely swamped by being a mother and having a job and getting on with it. So I really did very little for quite a long time, in terms of art. I used to make little textile pieces, and I think I did an evening class in machine embroidery, and I loved that. So I started getting into kind of making abstract little textile pieces, which I think looking back now was really all about, my brain capacity was only enough that I could kind of put together little bits of colours and walk away, and then come back and maybe add to those colours and walk away. So there's no big scheme, there's no big plan, there's no big story. It was just the desire to make something, and having such short little snippets of time that I couldn't, I couldn't spend too long on anything. So really it wasn't until my kids were quite a lot older that I really felt like I had a bit of room to spend some more time doing some painting.
Has any of the art influence rubbed off on them?
Yeah, although they've resisted it very hard. But both of them have kind of realised that they're both really great at drawing. They're really good. And they're both doing really well in their art GCSEs and their art A-levels. My husband's an artist as well. I don't know how that works. I mean, this is still a mystery to me. There's probably a book written about it that I need to read, but I don't really understand how being able to draw translates to your children. But yeah, they seem to be excellent at it, and they're doing very well.
Now, with the time that you had, you use different mediums. You use oils and acrylics, charcoal, pencil. Which are your preferred, or do you like to combine them in any particular way?
Yeah, I'd probably say the preferred is, is oil painting, probably. Yeah. Oil painting is probably my favourite, but I love acrylic paint and I like what you can do with it. And sometimes I do paint in acrylic the whole way through, because I usually start every painting in acrylic just to get it going, get the background colour down, maybe get some shapes in first and let it dry quickly. And sometimes that will just continue. It'll all be working, so I'll just end up painting the whole thing in acrylic. And sometimes I do add in coloured pencils. I do quite a lot of whenever I'm on holiday or I'm ill or something like that, or I have to work small scale. Colour pencils would be my preferred choice as well. I absolutely love colour pencils, and I like them on top of paint, and I like them mixed, with maybe collage or with some acrylic paint on top, or with some coloured inks underneath. So I think that might be a good thing about being an art teacher as well, because you're constantly teaching them this kind of massive range of techniques. Mixed media is excellent to work with students with. So you're always encouraging other people to push things a bit further and to add on and to take risks and to experiment. So I think that actually has helped me in feeling more confident to be able to experiment and to use different materials. Bringing in like I stuck a bit of old vintage wallpaper on a painting I just did, and that worked quite well. So feeling like nothing's too precious to do something weird with and just see what happens is I love.
How would you describe yourself as an artist now then?
I'd say I make figurative paintings, working from vintage photographs and old movies, with a narrative.
And does music come into the studio with you? Are you really influenced? Does that inspire you when you're painting?
Not really anymore. And it's not because I don't love it. I do love it, but I do find it's I don't know, it's too much in a way. It's too much to have on. It's too emotive, perhaps. I find it quite difficult to listen to music. I listen to music in the car, that's okay, but not while I'm painting. Painting either in silence or audiobooks or podcasts.
Oh, recommend some podcasts for us then.
In terms of other art podcasts, I do enjoy Art Juice and Fail Like an Artist. They're two that I probably listen to. And the John Dalton interviews are good. And Talk Art sometimes. So those arty ones are good. I quite like a sort of more psychological podcast. There's one called Hidden Brain, which I really enjoy, which is a psychology podcast. And that's always very interesting. And I do listen to a lot of true crime. I know that's a bit cheesy, but I do like a good old crime podcast.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
What else? Lately I seem to be downloading quite a lot of podcasts about near-death experiences and astral projection. So that's interesting.
Loving music like you have done throughout your life, do you play a musical instrument? Do you sing?
No, nothing, not at all.
And you're teaching not just in the school, but also workshops, I believe. Tell us what we can expect in the future. What have you got lined up?
At the moment, I've got 3 things on the schedule, which is I've got an online course in January, which is a 4 weeks. So it's like 4 sessions over 4 weeks with the Winslow Arts Centre. And that's like I think it's 2.5 hours. So every week for 4 weeks. And it's called Painting from Found Photographs. And so I've done it once before and it was great. And I had quite a big class. It was really fun. And it was interesting trying to just plan that and to work out an interesting, like a scheme so that people could kind of follow through what might you need to think about when you're working from photographs. And that's going from how do you choose an image and what's a good image to choose, and then thinking about composition and cropping. And then moving into kind of color choices, and then moving into how do you deal with figures and faces, what the different approaches, and then ending up with how can you make it yours and unique, and what other elements could you bring in. And we look at lots of artists along the way and talk about different approaches that you could take. And then I'll be teaching at Westdean College of Arts, which is in West Sussex, which is a really nice big old college that does beautiful arts courses. And I've taught there a few times, and I'll be doing another fairly similar course, but it's a short, over a weekend, very intensive course about painting from a photograph, where people will bring their family photographs and we'll try and make a painting in 2 days. And then I'm doing a 2-day portrait course with Draw Brighton, which is a lovely life drawing organisation here in Brighton. And I'm going to do a painting course, and I'm going to call it The Unfinished Portrait. And I haven't written it yet, but it's something about, like I say, unfinishedness.
To be continued then.
Yes.
And you had your first solo show this year, didn't you, in September? How did that go?
It was wonderful. It was really great. It was an absolute dream come true to have this. It's a very beautiful gallery, Cameron Contemporary, down in Hove. And, they asked me to do a solo show. They asked me in about March or April, I think, this year. And they wanted all new work, and it was opening in September. So I had a very busy summer. I didn't do a summer holiday, and nobody saw very much of me as I just tried to get these paintings together. But I think it looked really good, and it was thankfully successful, and I had really great feedback from it. So yeah, it was a real dream come true. It was so amazing to walk into this beautiful gallery space, and your name's on the door, and all of the paintings are out of the studio and they're up on the wall. Yeah, it was great.
Where would you like to see your art go now then, now that you've had a taste of that and you've combined, as you said earlier, both careers? What would you like to see the future look like?
I would love to have more opportunities for exhibiting. It'd be great to show in London and further afield. Would be wonderful. So I've got a couple of whispers of opportunities at the moment, some kind of really interesting things, not just painting exhibitions, but things like maybe book covers and a mural on a wall, which I'm really excited about as well. And and I'm about to start a sort of big commission, a big private commission, which will take me a little while. And then I'd like to start thinking more about, again, showing either in group shows or as solo shows. I do have a solo show next November in Margate, which is exciting because Margate's a very influential arty place at the moment. So that's excellent.
Wonderful. Well, there's lots to look forward to then. You must be really excited about what the future looks like for you as an artist now that you've really established yourself.
Yeah, I am really excited. It's been going better than I could have expected, really. I mean, I'm absolutely in shock sometimes about, what are people seeing? I don't understand. I really have to get people to spell it out to me sometimes of like, what do you see in the paintings? What do you like? Because, for me, it's kind of like I can just keep painting. I have so many ideas. I've got so many references that I know I could work with. I see paintings all the time that I think are so wonderful. I just want to do something like that. So it's no problem for me to paint, and I'm so interested to see what people think about the paintings and what they get out of them.
And what do they say?
I don't know. I mean, it's always very interesting because I feel like with quite a lot of my paintings, there's a double edge. It's not, all is not as it seems, I suppose. I'm quite often looking for some sort of other layer of narrative. So, for instance, yes, there's a woman holding a baby. What a lovely scene. She looks lovely and all the colours are lovely. So there's one level. But in the picture I'm thinking of, there's a dark shadow. The baby's casting a dark shadow over the mother. There's a big, quite dominant shadow falling over the lower half of her face and on her body. So, for example, there is that element of the shadow is really the story in the painting, and what does it mean to be a mother and to have those responsibilities and becoming that role in society.
So time for a holiday now?
Yes, we're planning on going to Scotland in October, so hopefully get a bit of a break.
Do you visit galleries and museums when you're on holiday and take the children?
Yeah. I mean, most of the time we do. So we went to New York in the Easter time, which was a really great holiday, and we did go to quite a few of the museums. They're quite patient. I think they usually enjoy them, but I do know that there is a limit, and they are quite often allowed to go to the shops if they want to.
Do you hope that they will pick up some of your artistic skills and interest and, make it a part of their life in some way, even if they're not full-time artists in the future?
I definitely do. I mean, I want it for everybody. And it's not so much skills. It's more like feeling able to translate your experience in some way, whatever it is, whether it's through writing, whether it's through, I don't know, cooking amazing food for people, or whether it is making music or, taking photographs or whatever it is, translating your lived experience in some way and feeling free and able to do that and feeling confident to do that is what everyone, I hope, feels able to do if they want to. So that's what I want for them. I'd love them to feel free and confident to be able to do however they want to do that, to express themselves.
How would you then characterize what art does for you and your soul?
Well, it speaks from a place that is not expressed in any other way. It's a thoughtful place. It's an emotive place. It's a place full of my memories, but also a collective memory. I really feel that there is something about, I think that's why I love looking at historical vintage imagery. I feel very connected with these people. I didn't even live in those times and I don't know who they are, but I feel very tender. I feel very emotional. I feel very moved by their lives, especially when you watch them on home movies and you see them walking and talking and laughing. It's very moving and you feel very connected and you feel very part of a chain of people, of society, of culture. And when I make the paintings, I feel like I'm connecting with that and I'm speaking something about my own experience now or the current experience through looking back into the past.
And it certainly comes across in your work, Amy. So long may it continue. Thank you so much for being my guest this week.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
And you can visit Amy's website by following the link in our show notes. And there's also a link there to our social media, the Art Podcast on Instagram, where we would love to hear from you. And give us a follow and share with your friends and let us know what you think about the show. And coming up on the podcast in the next few weeks, we'll be hearing from some of the artistic women behind the camera. The Art Podcast is produced and edited by me, Chris Stafford, and is a Hollowell Studios production.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So, while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.